Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to book reviews. Okay, so today we're going to do the sci-fi classic and 1961 winner, A Canticle for Leibowitz. Okay, first off, this was a hard book for me to start reading because of how sci-fi-y it is and fantasy-y it is. So let me give you a general rundown of the idea of the structure of this. In the distant future, now the not so distant future, nuclear war has wiped out modern civilization. And a Dark Ages type civilization has grown up. And there is the new Catholic Church, or the Catholic Church in New Rome, is arguing about canonizing a man named Leibowitz, who was an electrical engineer during this nuclear war, and then decided that since he knew what was going to happen to civilization, that he joined the priesthood and started a Franciscan type order that memorized and protected and honored books, so that when civilization decided to rebuild itself, it would have books. And he becomes a saint, and the book is in three parts. There's like a Dark Ages type civilization where civilization is complete anarchy and this order exists, and this guy finds a toolbox that belonged to Leibowitz and a wiring diagram that is then treated like a holy relic. And then there's a mid-level strata society. And then in the final chapter, space exploration. So instead of taking 2,000 years to get to where we are now, it takes them, I think, like 1,400, maybe 1,700. They cut a couple hundred years off because of this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff about them experimenting with electricity, things like that, arc lights, doing it very badly, and recopying these books, and their job as kind of memorizers and kind of the guardians of these books, and there being and then kind of power struggles with these people who control parts of like Kansas, Utah, stuff like that. It's very post-apocalyptic, and seems really jokey, but it isn't. And so let's just dive right in. So this is from the second chapter because it's in the medieval part, the Middle Ages of this new society. And a scholar is talking about hearing rumors these books exist from the time of Leibowitz in this monastery. The scholar nodded. And that's all anyone knows about them or what they did. Physicists, according to our not-so-reliable historians, responsible for the rapid rise of the European-American culture, they say. Historians list nothing but trivia. I had nearly forgotten them. But Coroner's description of the old documents, they say, they have are descriptions of papers that might well be taken from physical science texts of some kind. It's just impossible. But you have to make certain. We have to make certain now that it's come up. I wish I had never heard of it. Why? Don Taddeo was peering at something in the street below. He beckoned to the priest. Come here a moment. I'll show you why. Apollo slipped from behind the desk and looked down at the muddy, rutted streets beyond the wall that encircled the palace and barracks and buildings of the Collegium, cutting off the mayoral sanctuary from the seething plebeian city. The scholar was pointing at the shadowy figure of a peasant leading a donkey homeward at twilight. The man's feet were wrapped in sackcloth, and the mud had caked about them so that he seemed scarcely able to lift them. But he trudged ahead in one slogging step after another, resting half a second between footfalls. He seemed too weary to scrape off the mud. He doesn't ride the donkey, Don Taddeo stated, because this morning the donkey was loaded down with corn. It doesn't occur to him that the packs are empty now. What is good enough for the morning is also good enough for the afternoon. You know him? He passes under my window, too, every morning and evening. Hadn't you noticed him? Well, 1,000 like him. Look, can you bring yourself to believe that that brute is the lineal descendant of men who supposedly invented machines that flew? Who traveled to the moon, harnessed the forces of nature, built machines that could talk and seemed to think? Can you believe there were such men? Apollo was silent. Look at him, the scholar persisted. No, but it's too dark now. You can't see the syphilis outbreak on his neck, the way the bridge of his nose is being eaten away, paresis. But he was undoubtedly a moron to begin with, illiterate, superstitious, murderous. He diseases his children. For a few coins he would kill them. He will sell them anyway when they are old enough to be useful. Look at him and tell me if you see the prodigy of a once mighty civilization. What do you see? The image of Christ, grated the Monsignor, surprised at his own sudden anger. What did you expect me to see? The scholar huffed impatiently. The incongruity! Men as you can observe them through any window, and men as historians would have us believe men once were. I can't accept it. How can a great and wise civilization have destroyed itself so completely? So good. So good. Like, fantastic. Fantastic. Like, our civilization is so completely destroyed. By the way, in the Dark Ages, they don't know what fallout is. They don't know what a nuclear war is. They just refer to it as the flame deluge, and they don't know what fallout is, but they believe it is some sort of giant demonic salamander. So good. Yeah. Like, you would think that this is funny, right? You would think. So we'll read this. In the depths of the Utah desert, long after the flame deluge has scoured the earth clean, a monk of the order of St. Leibowitz has made a miraculous discovery. Holy relics from the life of the great saint himself, including the blessed blueprint, the sacred shopping list, and the hallowed shrine of the fallout shelter. In the terrifying age of darkness and decay, these artifacts could be the key to mankind's salvation. But as the mystery at the core of this groundbreaking novel unfolds, it is the search itself for meaning, for truth, for love, that offers hope for humanity's rebirth from the ashes. Yeah, you think that this would be funny, and it could be. It's not. It's not. Miller plays it straight. He really does. He just goes, well, of course there'll be saints from that time. The order that projects these books. Of course, eventually, our civilization will become a legend. Fantastic. So good. So good. And then eventually, like, we get back to having nuclear weapons, right? And that becomes a thing. Like, a thing of biblical significance. Because we've already destroyed the world once. It's very, I mean, this is the kind of thing when I talk to you about the 60s list, and I go, oh, the 60s list is like the greatest list. The 60s list is, I mean, this is like ground zero, pun intended, for the 60s list. And it's beyond. Like, this is the classic bestseller and a landmark of 20th century literature. Indeed. Indeed. This is where science fiction just grabs a hold, right? Like the 1960s is where it just goes, we can be something better, and grabs a hold of literature and goes like, we're here to stay. And there's no forced happy endings. There's no grand moralizing. There's no, this isn't magazine science fiction anymore. It's an attempt to use the elements of science fiction to write important literature, and this does really well with that. Are there elements of humor? Oh yeah, it's laugh out loud funny sometimes because of the ridiculousness. But it's also just very real. It's just very beautifully kind of real about like the personalities and the politics, and then humanity struggling to be what it can be against what it naturally is, right? Because like all of this stuff is an affectation of our intellect that we like build these buildings around us and stuff like. But at the very core, if you take this away, we're scratching in the dirt to find bugs to eat. That's what we are. we are animals that are built to scavenge. Like, we just so happen to. I mean, tools did this. So it's amazing that way. It's amazing to deal with a society that's been set back to zero, and then watch it get back up to past here, and then kind of have the burden of being set back to zero, and then all of it's told from the point of view of this kind of Catholic philosophy, like this new Catholicism that has to incorporate a past that involves apocalypse. Really well done. Very well done. And the shame of it is that he waited until the end of his life to try to write a sequel, and he died in the middle of it. So there is a sequel that was finished from his notes, but I mean, it was written like 35 years after this book. And this book really it does not take you anywhere. Like, it gives you these kind of photographic glimpses of the society, and then just kind of leaves you. Just goes like, there's my story. And you go, oh, well, that's amazing. But you could have done more. I mean, this could be a series. This could be a very good series. It wasn't. It's a standalone book. And it's a standalone book that is a landmark in science fiction for various reasons, but more so, I would think, from my experience with the timeline of science fiction, is how outside of convention it was. To just be like, stories are, the story is roughly linear, but it has a common thread through it, but no, main characters. Some objects pass through this monastery that you see as it jumps 600 years through time. It just goes like, let's just examine an idea, and it does. It just examines this idea of society rebuilding itself, and it does it masterfully. I mean, it's just a very good book. It's a quick book. It is let's see, it's a little over it's 340 pages, and it doesn't feel like that. It really moves. You'll have trouble putting it down. I had just a ton of fun with it. I really loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was. I'm glad I read it. I don't know that I'll read the sequel because he didn't finish it. But yeah, Canticle for Leibowitz was just, like I said, just another mind-blowing book out of the 60s list. And like I keep saying, if you don't want to read all Hugo Award winners, but you're interested in what I'm doing, read the 60s list. Just read every book that won in the 60s. That's it. That's it. Just do that. Just do it. Because they're all amazing. All of them. So, that being said, Canticle for Leibowitz, highly recommend. Classic of science fiction. You can't get away from it. It won a bunch of, it really is. It's just one of those things. And also, yay, look at that opening page right there. The great opening page thing. Can you see that? Let me move it. It's backwards to me. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a good book. And, some monk spends, 20 years copying a blueprint to, make it look all artistic and beautiful. Like a wiring diagram. They have the base for a radio, and they don't know. It's object unknown. They have no idea what a radio was. Because that's how clearly society was. Society did an anti-intellectual purge. Leibowitz was martyred for being illiterate. He was hung and burned. I mean, it literally takes us back to the, what we would consider the start of kind of Western civilization, and then goes from there with some poor electrical engineer who just thinks books are important getting killed by a mob because he likes books and thinks books are important, and that taking on religious significance. It's amazing. It's amazing. And that's what's really wonderful. That's another wonderful thing about science fiction, is that I guess that's the lesson, right? This is how important books are. This is how important what we do is, for writers and readers. And, it's a theme in science fiction. People worry that they're going to take away the books. Read Bradbury. That guy was terrified. He hated censorship he hated censorship like evangelicals hate the devil. That's how much. And you get it, you just get it. Just get it. But, for a long time, a long point in our history, this was what we had. And this is where we put all of our truths. And all of our lies. And, you could erase that. Right? Censorship can erase what we can think. Not what we do think, but what we're capable of thinking. That's terrifying. Terrifying. So I would suggest Canticle for Leibowitz. It is a book that should be hilarious and is only mildly funny and incredibly profound. But well written and a fast read. So yeah, the winner in 1961, Walter M. Miller Jr. Boom. Read it. Good book. Bye, everybody.